I met my future wife at a football match where she came along with her friends, and that's where we met. She was very attracted to me, and I found her very interesting. Having watched the match with each other, I invited her to a party after the match had ended. Then I discovered that she had been married for a year and had gotten divorced. It has been 2 years since she was married, and since then she has been single. Anyhow, somehow in a couple of weeks, we became good friends, and very long story short, we fell in love with each other and have been together ever since. We decided to get married after 1.5 years of dating, which, as it turned out, proved to be a good decision for us in the long run. As a matter of fact, I was not a very stable person by occupation. I worked as a cashier in a bank. As for her needs, according to me, they were a little high. She was undoubtedly an expensive girl, and there is no doubt about it. A few days ago, I found a precious ring in my cupboard that was very expensive. Upon asking her about it, she told me that it was her favorite ring, but she did not want to wear it because it reminded her of the toxic marriage that she was in. The only reason she is keeping it is because it is an expensive item. As far as I know, she has never told me anything about her marriage other than that what I said above. However, I was not unconcerned about her ex-husband's wealth, and I had a strong feeling that he was quite wealthy. The fact that she spends money in this manner makes it easy for me to predict it. There was a time when things were going well in our marriage, but then something strange happened. One weekend, she told me that a friend of hers was throwing a party and she wanted to attend it. Regardless of the fact that she goes, I allowed her to do so because I just wanted to keep her in the comfort zone, so I did not question her on anything at all. Her party started at around 8 p.m. in the evening, and she arrived there at about 10 p.m. In such a case, it was obvious that she would be late for the party. A GPS tracker has been installed in my car for the purpose of ensuring my safety. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is eat breakfast. I received a notification from my cell phone allowing me to know that there was a GPS last night route, which I could check. My car was driven to the woods so that it could be parked there. It was not clear to me that the location it was showing was 20 miles away from the city. It was difficult for me to understand what had happened. My wife was sleeping when I thought of asking about it since she was home late at night. I had to go to my job, so I did not want to wait for her to get up, so I thought to talk to her at the end of the day. At work, I was constantly thinking about it as I sat at my desk. In the evening, when I returned home, my wife was already getting late for a trip, so she did not tell me anything about it. She just grabbed the keys to the car and drove away while saying that she would tell me after that she had returned home. From the last night onwards, it seemed like her activities were a bit suspicious, so it was strange. By the time it got to 10 p.m. in the night, it was getting dark. As soon as she got home, then I finally got the chance to ask her where she was and what she was doing. According to her, her friend was in a hospital, so she decided to visit her. My question to her was, why didn't you tell me sooner? As far as she was concerned, she was late at that time. It is because of this that she did not have a chance to tell me. I reminded her that we had a meeting in the evening for almost 5 minutes before she had to depart. I was expecting her to tell me about the hospital, but still she did not tell me anything about the hospital. At the same time I was speaking to her, she began to looking around as she was listening to me. Then, all of a sudden, she apologized and said she needed some rest so I could let her go so that she could rest. When she walked into the room, I was standing there watching her go in. It was obvious that there was something very wrong with her. Before that, in the past 1.5 years, I had not sensed the same sort of confusion in her as I did now. The situation had now become even more confusing for her. As I think about it now, I am still not really sure why she went to a place that was about 20 miles out of the city. Hence, I thought it would be a good idea for me to give her some space at that time. The following day, we spoke about this and she mentioned that her friend had lent the car to her. She was the one who went out of the city along with her lover. That makes a lot of sense to me. The reason I asked myself that question was because I knew that she could not tell me a lie while watching into my eyes. This gave me the confidence to trust her. In my mind, there was no way for me to doubt what she told me. The incident happened again in the afternoon when I was on a break and my colleague had an important task to complete. During our trip from the hospital, from the pedestrian lane, I was able to see her passing. Due to lack of time, I had to go to the office instead of stopping to meet with her. When I got home at night, in the middle of the dinner, I asked her what she was doing around the hospital while she was eating. Her face had a kind of shock on it as I watched her. There was a feeling of hesitation in her voice. I asked her again a few minutes later. I was then reminded by her about one of her friends who is in the hospital. It was in my heart that I knew she was lying to me. Anyhow, I promised her that I would be visiting the friend of hers next time. She replied with a yes, of course. Honestly, it's impossible for me to avoid feeling as I was suffocating with her right now. The reason for this was that she was not the same as she had been before. After a few days, it was Sunday again, so at the moment when I asked her about her sick friend, I also thought it would be a good idea to go along with her on that day. She said that there was no need for me to go to the hospital at this point since she had been discharged. In those days, she also stopped going to the hospital on a regular basis. In spite of this, I was still keeping my eyes on her. I noticed in the last 2 weeks she was wearing that ring, which she used to hate but would not throw away when she used to wear it. It was now a habit for her to always wear that ring, especially whenever she stepped out of the house. When I asked her why she was wearing that ring, she replied, "I don't know." As a part of her normal routine, she also started getting ready more often. During this stage, I thought it would be best if I followed her, but I think now she has become so sharp that I am amazed how much she has changed. In the past, she used to get my car, but now she has started taking a car instead. In the process of following her, I saw that she was going to large mansions a few miles away. After talking to the guard for a few minutes, I found that she has been coming here for the last month. The fact that she was the ex-wife of this man now made it quite obvious where she was going. For me, it was a real shock to find out what had happened. There was a lot of strangeness to the fact that she was going back to her ex-husband. After that, I got back to home and thought all about the things that I had found. Upon getting home, she came home at a very late hour in the evening. As she sat on the couch, she seemed to be at ease. Then I read the address of the location from which she had come to, as well as the phone number. As her face was awash with shock, she immediately asked me where I got that address from, and her questions were awash with confusion. This is the question I would like to know from you. In response to my question, she said that she did not know. Then I said, "Let me know that it was your ex-husband's house." Her eyes were filled with astonishment, and she got up and said, "She don't have time for this nonsense." Then I said to her to sit down, but at the same time she refused. In response, I said that I'm going to meet her ex-husband at this address. When she had finished speaking, she sat down quietly. "What is going on?" I asked her, "What's going on?" She remained quiet for a moment. Then I asked her again. She said a few weeks ago she was contacted by the secretary of her ex-husband's business. She was informed by him that he wanted to meet with her. It was then that the secretary informed her that he was on his deathbed. As soon as she arrived at his house, she met him for the first time in 3 years. It was important to him that she stayed with her in this difficult time. In an effort to apologize to her for all the torture he had caused to her, he confessed his sins to her. Due to the fact that he was an old man and had no one in his family to help him, he had no choice. Based on what she told me, it was obvious that he was guilty, and these were his last moments on earth. In order to forgive him, she decided to spend some time in taking care of him. It occurred to me that maybe that was the only reason why she was taking care of him. I asked her, is it just to make him happy that she had to wear the ring he gave her? She said yes, that's the only reason. Then I asked her, if he did not know about that you are now married. She replied that he did not know. In response, I said that I would go to his place tomorrow and tell him the truth about what had happened. It is not possible for you to do that, she said. In response, I asked why, as I reminded her she was my wife and not his wife. It is therefore impossible for me to allow her to go there in this way. It was her request to me that I don't do that. I asked her why she was so determined to go and stay at his place and why she was so desperate to get there. Afterwards, she revealed that she could inherit her entire wealth after the death of her ex-husband. Then I said, now I understand why you are doing all this to get the wealth. So I totally understand what you are saying. I told her, however, that I could not allow her to do that. In my opinion, it was a mistake. In the end, she said that she could give me half of the wealth if I wanted it. Considering the fact that I also wanted to become rich, this offer did make me a bit more persuaded. It did not seem bad to me if she just wanted to take care of that old man, and in return, we could be rich. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to take some time to make up my mind. In the end, I decided that it would be best if I gave her the opportunity to do that. As a matter of fact, I was even more concerned that I should send her to his home for a couple of days in order to let her do what she said. It was also because of her that I became greedy as well. However, it was after 2 weeks that I received the envelope for my wife. When I opened it, in this case, the papers were for a divorce. As I read through them carefully, I discovered that she was preparing for a divorce between us. It shook my core so much that I was speechless for 3 hours after this happened. Despite calling her many times, she did not pick up my calls, and I was also panicked. I then thought that I should go to the place and see what was going on. Due to the fact that it was the middle of the night, the security guard did not allow me to get in. In order to get into the house, I have to find another way. I was obviously concerned about the safety of my wife while she was in that property. On my way in, I noticed from the window that my wife was wearing a lingerie and she was sitting on the couch with a man and drinking champagne. My understanding of her nasty planning had now been clarified. Whenever her ex-husband got in touch with her again and apologized, she thought she would leave me and get married to him again. My wife was shocked to see me there when I suddenly knocked on the window and that man opened the door to let me in. She was amazed to see me in that place. It was then that I revealed everything to him. There were some truths about our marriage and what she planned. My divorce paper was in my pocket at the time, so I gave her the divorce on the spot. And as I know that man also kicked her out of the house after knowing the real truth about her. The old man that she told me about was a lie. Whatever the case may be, she is now on the road just because of the lie she had told. As far as my life is concerned, I am living it at my own. As much as she hurt me, she is now facing the consequences of what she has done in her greed. I still cannot believe she would do something like this. I hope she learned her lesson and never does something like this again. I have to move on and accept what had happened.